I am pleased to introduce today Mr. Clay Campbell. Mr. Campbell is the founder and owner of the Kentucky Opry in Draftonville, Kentucky. He's a concert promoter as well and has brought the likes of the Oak Ridge Boys, Josh Turner, Ray Stevens, and many other stars to our area, including to the Carson Center as well as the, the Marion Civic Center. He is a distinguished member of the Toastmasters in Paducah and Murray and has written 5 books. He also helps a lot of talented kids hone their musical chops. Those are his words, not mine. I kind of think I know what that means, but does wonderful with our talented children in the area. He's also a worship leader at a Cowboy church, a proud father, proud grandfather, and is eternally grateful to his fabulous wife, Barbie, who tirelessly works to keep him on his schedule and keep him on track. He is also the owner and partner of Wizard of Ads. I hear we've got some clients of his in the audience. But please help me welcome Mr. Clay Campbell.
Thank you, Lydia, and thank you, John, for inviting me, President Jamie. It's great to be here. Y'all look good today. I met a gentleman just before from Italy, and he said, "Excuse me, I don't do so good with the English language," and I said, "Neither do I." So here we are today. John sent me an email, and we talked on the phone, and he said, "Clay, what I'd really like to have you do is talk about the longevity of your music career in the Kentucky Opry. We're celebrating, this is our 27th season. It doesn't seem hardly that it's been that long. And talk a little bit about the Kentucky Opry business." And then he said also be motivational and inspirational and entertaining and funny. And I said, "I'll give it my best shot, John." I was perusing around on the Rotarian website this morning and just looking to see what Rotary is all about because I didn't know. But y'all do great work. You do terrific things. And so then Herbert J. Taylor wrote the thing you have there. And I asked about my presentation today. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Would it build goodwill and better friendships? And would it be beneficial to all concerned? And I think so. I hope that today I can give you some inspiration and some hope that if somebody like me can do what I've done, it'll give hope to America, I'm telling you. My objective is to give a few business tips that I believe have helped me to build our company, and I give credit for whatever success that I've had to a wonderful wife and God who gave me lots of grace, and I've been given more than I've deserved for sure. And I have an amazing team of people that I work with as well, and a lot of credit goes to them. And then I want to tell the Kentucky Opry story, and then I'm going to throw down a challenge for the Rotarians. And congratulations to $1 million that you have given in scholarships. You are to be congratulated from the world. Y'all done good, as we say back home. I like things that are humorous, funny, that have a ring of truth to them. Like I go around saying lots of times, you're either in trouble, headed for trouble, or just getting out of trouble all the time. If you own a business, you either got problems, or you're about to have problems, or you're just getting out of problems, and that never changes. You just get different problems. Sometimes you hire a new problem. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of true. And so my father summed it up this way. He said, "Son, life is difficult, and then you get old and die." It's kind of true. So I got some little tips here today that I thought I would. 6 important things that I want to tell you, and then I'll get into the story of the Kentucky Opry. 6 important things. I get a lot of stuff done, an amazing amount of stuff done. I run several different companies, and how do I get so much done is a question people ask me a lot. And I have a habit. I write down the 6 most important things that I've got to do tomorrow, and I write that down tonight. I'm always operating by a list. This is so good you should get a pen and write it down. Lydia is here. 6 things. 6 things tonight that you need to do tomorrow, the most important things. And then what happens, the prefrontal cortex of your brain is right here. It's where temporary memory is housed. Temporary memory at the close of the day erases advertising. It erases the mundane and the boring things that happened to you that day. And the next day you start all over. But the subconscious mind back here never sleeps. I coach my children. I got 23 young people that I have amazing, their parents have entrusted me to teach these kids and coach them, and it's an amazing responsibility. I told Marcus back there, I said, you look dapper today, brother. He does. He looks very, very good, and I told him so. So young people, they need to be encouraged, and they need compliments, and that's a lot of what I do. But I tell them, if you want to be successful, here's how you do it. Success in life happens when opportunity and preparedness meet. And they come right up there and they meet. Many times in life, opportunity comes by, we're not prepared. Then sometimes we're prepared and there isn't any opportunity coming your way. That's how it is. So I tell the kids, listen to the music that you're going to be playing over the next year, and you put that on a CD player and listen to it every night, and your subconscious brain learns it. And your subconscious brain will work on your list tonight so you'll be ready for in the morning. That's it. I delegate everything except there's the most important things that I have to do that only I can do. I delegate everything else. And what I have to do is sign contracts with very expensive people that I'm going to pay them. And so that nobody else seems to want to sign the contract with me, you know. So I have to do that. And then another thing, I'm planning right now November, December, and January and February shows. I plan way ahead. And then I sit early in the morning and drink coffee and I think and I plan and I think and I plan because I can't delegate that to anybody. My best asset and my worst asset is both the same. You see, I'm not afraid to fail. I've failed many, many times. I've had to start over in life many times, and you'll see some of that on the screen in a few minutes. But I'm not afraid of failure. That's a good asset to have, but it's also a great weakness. So I've got some great friends that help me along in those lines, and I've got a wonderful wife that keeps me grounded, really solid that way. She doesn't let me go off in some thing that doesn't sound right. So I'm not afraid to fail. And another thing is, failure is not an event. A failure is an event. It's not a person. So that's important. In life, if you're going to do anything very much worthwhile, you're going to have some failures. Be ready for it. And then I got some great money advice. I was talking with Lydia about money. And the best money advice I ever got from somebody for a business owner was Ben Gent. I went there and I was talking to him about some advertising and his advertising budget. And he said, well, son, I'll tell you about my advertising budget. You see that little spindle over there? When people come in, they pay $10 to get in, and I take $1 out of that 10 and I put it in that safe over there. And that safe, that's my advertising budget for next summer. And I said, amazing. He said, whenever that safe is empty, I quit advertising. He said, then I save money this year for next year. That's very wise advice. Not very many people do that. A little tip on your advertising that makes a big difference over the long haul would be before you post it, before you put it on a billboard, before you put it in a radio ad, before it goes on TV or wherever you put words, read them. Read your words over out loud. And it's even better to put them on an iPhone and listen to them back. Listen to what you're saying before you put it on the website or a newsletter or an ad. 50 years of making music. I got off to a rough start as a little kid. I had a cyst on my ear, and I had that till I was 13 years old, and nobody in school ever made fun of me over it. We were very poor. We were so poor, my dad said that the depression came and went, and we didn't know no difference. I grew up in a little bitty town, Bland, Missouri. I left home at age 15. I hitchhiked to California. I had bought a guitar at this place, Hicks's Tavern. I traded a saddle and a pig for it. That's a true story. I learned how to play, and I went back there about 7 or 8 months later, and I played there. And then the next day, I told you I lived in a little bitty town, right? My mom worked at a shoe factory for 75 cents an hour at that time. And the next evening after school, my mama said, son, where were you last night? I said, why do you ask, Mom? She said, was you at Hicks's Tavern playing your guitar in there? And I said, yeah, but Mama, I didn't do nothing wrong. I didn't smoke any cigarettes or drinking nothing. And she said, well, I wish you hadn't done that, son. And I said, why, Mom? I don't see anything wrong with it. And she said, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. We become like the people we associate with every time. So I traded off that acoustic guitar and bought an electric guitar. You see the fella's head behind me there? That's my older brother. I didn't have enough money to buy the electric guitar, but I wanted to play lead guitar like Chuck Berry. I wanted to do it, and I didn't want an acoustic guitar. So I wanted to get electric, and I said, would you lend me money? And they said, well, yeah, we'll lend you money one time, but we'll never lend you money ever again as long as we live. And you have to promise us this one thing. And I said, okay, what? They said, every time you make $1 with your guitar, you take and put it over here in a coffee can, put 10 cents. If you make $10, put $1 in there. If you make $100, put $10 in there, because you're going to want maybe an amplifier or a microphone or some music equipment. He said, you go to your coffee can and get that. Don't come back to us. Well, it was $10,000 that I had in the coffee can when I started the Kentucky Opry. We had no debt. We operated in the black every year for 26 years. That's what I looked like in 1964 when the Beatles was on TV. I wanted to be famous, and I wanted to be rich and make a lot of money and didn't want to be poor anymore, so that's what I looked like. So I took off to California to seek my fame and fortune, and I had a letter from my father, and it said, to whom it may concern, this boy is not a vagrant, he is not a runaway, he's off on a mission to see the world, and I'm okay with that. Signed, Earl Campbell. I wrote all that down in a book called The Clay Campbell Story, Guitar, Bars, and a Prodigal Son, because I was a lot like that prodigal son in the Bible story, where he was living with the pigs, didn't have anything to eat, squandered all of his money, and so it was just about like me. 10 years later, this was my 50th year playing a guitar. That was my first garage band. Oh, we thought we were cool. I'm telling you, we got to play on Lee Mace's Ozark Opry, and he had a TV show, and we played on his TV show, and we won his talent contest, and man, I thought I was in tall cotton, as they said back home. Woo-hee! And so he gave me some real good advice. He patted me on the shoulder like that, and he said, son, you keep singing, you're bound to get better. I took that as encouragement, Marcus. Now, this is my family. I was next to the youngest, and Mom and Dad had 10 children, and whenever they had their 50th wedding anniversary, we got Mama a hearing aid. We didn't know all that time she was hard of hearing, and that's why they had so many children, because every night they'd go to bed, Dad would say, Mama, you want to go to sleep or what? She'd say, what? So... You're president, people. Right there he is. I got married when I was 17. We had a little girl. I got divorced 2 years later. I chose playing music over my family. That's one of the other many things that I regret in life. During that time, by the way, it took me many years. It took me 25 years to repair the damage with my daughter that I did. And we have a great relationship today, and a great relationship with her 3 sons, my grandchildren. They're 19, 16, and 13, and they're amazing to be with. That was the first band that I was in, where I had a professional gig, wore nice clothes, and we played all over the country. Then in 1972, I formed my own band and started on the road, and this is a typical contract of a week that we worked. We made, in 1972, I made $600 for 6 nights' work. I had a 3-piece band, so I had 2 other people to pay. We paid our own food and our own motel and our gas. And 20% to the agent. If you can do math real quick, that didn't leave us any money, except enough to get, why did I do it? Ask me, why did you do it? Most of the places we played gave us free booze. I'm telling you the truth. So I spent several years of my life there playing in dives and bars from L.A. to New York and Minot, North Dakota to San Antonio. I never place in between. We played bars, and it was not good. In one of those bars, I met another lady, and that marriage lasted about 4 years, and I don't remember much of those 4 years. I really don't. I'm trying to forget them, actually. And so that was my second divorce. Here's why God allows divorce. It gives people an opportunity to see what a little bit of hell looks like in advance. It's a little funny, but it has a ring of truth to it. I like things like that. So, like when I first met Jamie, he said to me, Clay, what are you good at? And I said, starting over. He said, no, what's your specialty? And I said, skating on thin ice. So did you notice there that we had matching outfits? When we got a divorce, I kept this outfit. And then I met Barbie, and she said, get rid of that thing. First thing, I'm not going anywhere with you wearing that. By 1978, 6 years later, I was doing better than I had ever done in my life. I was making about $2,000 a week clear money, and I thought that I spent it like I was rich. I went to Nashville and recorded an album. We played at the Opryland Hotel. We were the first band that played there. We played on Printer's Alley. That was where the rich people came to eat. We were playing supper clubs. I told my mom, we're not playing bars and taverns no more, Mama. We're playing these nice supper clubs. And she said, yeah, rich people just come there and get drunk in a suit, son. It was all the same to my mom. So I recorded this album, and this album came out in 1976, the same time John Conley's album, Rose-Colored Glasses, came out. He and I recorded in the same studio with the same musicians and the same producer and the same engineer. His album sold 1 million copies, and my album sold 100,000 copies. And if you would like to have a copy of it, I can get you a copy because I got 98,000 of them left. I like things that are funny that have a ring of truth to them, so. That was my publicity photo when my bride fell in love with me. That's Barbie now. We've been married for 36 years. We're very, very happy. Thank God and a good woman I made it through this right here. I skipped over that, but we filed bankruptcy in 1981, and I thought I was going to die. It was one of the worst times in my life, and I lost a home, 7 acres of land, 3 apartment buildings, all the money that I had saved for a while, and a movie theater business in a little small town. And I had to start over. I felt like you would feel physically if a big wrestler had thrown you up in the air and then thrown you down and stomped on you. That's how you would feel physically. That's how I felt mentally. I was mentally bankrupt, spiritually bankrupt, and financially bankrupt. And so I don't know how I made it through, but we did start over. And about 7 years later, we came to Kentucky. I had had a good job up in Indiana, and I was making good money again. And my life has kind of went like that in cycles. It's just gone that way, and I've had to start over many times. We started over here, and this was 1988. That was my first band. And I managed to hire some really good people. I hired some people that were just real decent, good people. And let me how many people own a business and hire people? Let me give you some real good advice. This has worked really good for me. Try to find out if your prospective person you're thinking of hiring did any work between ages 10 and ages 15 or so. If they did any work as a child, other things being equal, education, resume, and everything, hire the one that worked as a teenager, and they're 100% of the time, they're a better worker. They're like this. They're trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Just the kind of people you Rotarians would like. That was our crowd in 1980, a little bitty small place. Somehow, by the grace of God, the SBA, the Bank of Benton, lent me enough money to buy that piece of land there. There was a lady pushing a sign down in the ground with her foot. We drove past that one Sunday afternoon, and I pulled in there and I said, how much you want for this? And she said, $35,000. And I said, how much land? She said 2.5 acres of land. Well, real quick, within about 3 seconds, I figured this would be a really good place for the Kentucky Opry. I said, I'll give you $33,000 for it and I'll write you a check today for $500. She said, okay, I think they'll take it. Sure enough, they did. Last year, 3 blocks up the road, an acre of land sold for $150,000. About as far as from here to the other side of the building, a quarter of an acre land sold for $56,000. And I own 6 acres of land there, free and clear today. But in the beginning, it was destitute. It was desperate, I'm telling you. We started, and that's what my building looked like in the beginning. And so we kept working and kept saving my money, and I kept working at a daytime job doing my advertising business. I owned the ad sheet here for about 4 or 5 years in Paducah, and I sold that. I started the ad sheet with $400 of my own money, and I sold it 4.5 years later for $120,000. And I took some of that money, and I did this with it. Look again. As we say down home, ain't that something what $5,000 could do? And I took that $5,000 out of that little coffee can where I had saved the money. So the next year, our business increased 25%. And the show on the inside was the same. It was the same show. We just looked different on the outside to people. We looked more respectable there. So there we go. We got it. Look more like a country music theater instead of a place where you keep tractors. Last year, the Kentucky Opry grossed right at $1 million in sales. The first year, in that little building, we did $30,000, and that included T-shirts, caps, and the concession stand. I'm convinced about half of what successful entrepreneurs, what makes them successful, is just what I did. Perseverance, hanging in there. That's my 3 boys. I taught them all how to play, and they all had good music coaches besides myself, and Barbie and I were their home teachers, but we had professional teachers. For 12 years, we drove them 95 miles one way to Carbondale, Illinois for lessons from good teachers. We did that for 12 years, 95 miles one way. But now Clayton plays with the Gibson brothers. They travel all over the world on the Grand Ole Opry. He told me, son, he said, Dad, they asked us to come back and do an encore, and I played a fiddle song. And he said, Dad, there was about 3,500 people standing up and cheering for me when I walked off the stage. And I said, son, I'm real proud of you. And I'm proud of all 3 of our sons. The middle one plays for the Vandells, a 50s and 60s retro group. And the youngest one, the verdict is still out on him, but it seems like he might be following in some of the footsteps that I was trod in years ago. The apple don't fall too far from a tree sometimes. But they were all scouts. They were trustworthy, good boys. That's what they look like today. They're all professional musicians and really good musicians. Barbie and I put our lives into those boys. But let me tell you something that happened at the Opry. We hired a young girl here that I really believed in. She was from Simpsonia, a very talented young girl named Vicki Vaughn. She worked for me for 10 years. This girl, one of the girls there, Cassie, now teaches in inner city Louisville. Blair teaches in Nashville. She's a music teacher. Vicki has a band and travels all over the world. The blonde in the middle there is a vocal coach, plays the violin, and is an amazing musician and singer. And she has her own coaching business. Rachel Witt, the blonde, was on The Voice twice. She works in Nashville, and she's a pharmaceutical sales rep, and last year made $120,000. I had a chance to put some input into the lives of those young people. And this was my cast back when we started the Opry. When we moved into our new building. The guitar player in the next 5 years, the guitar player died. Scotty, my best friend and comedian, and a great part of the show, he got sick and had to retire. And my 3 children all left, and Vicki Vaughn went to Belmont. She told me later, she said, Mr. Clay, the 10 years I spent at the Opry were more beneficial to me than my 4 years at Belmont. I said, you're going to make me cry. So in 5 years, I lost 5 key people. 5, and I had to start over. And oh, that was so hard. And I said, dear God, where am I going to get some good people? How am I going to start over? Well, I started investing into the lives of young people. Vicki was the first one. She got to stand right beside me and learn the business. A great rule, never expect what you don't inspect. When you give a teenager a job, you got to check and make sure that they did it. Does that go for employees too? Yeah. If you give them $100 and tell them to go buy something, you got to check and make sure they give you back the correct change, right? You got to. This is my inspector right there. She inspects everything. But that's a great rule if you're in business. Never expect what you don't inspect. Then we started bringing in bigger stars at from the Grand Ole Opry. I got to meet a lot of my famous people that I admired so much as a kid. Ray Price. I sang his music for years and got to meet him and hang out with these guys backstage and have dinner with them. It was a really wonderful thing meeting some of these famous people. The night Merle Haggard played at the Opry, the two musicians walked up the aisle and they say, hey, where can we buy some alcohol and whiskey and beer? I said, there's no beer here. It's 25 miles. And he said, well, we'll have a good show tonight. And we did. We had a great show. Merle was really amiable, real friendly. And then in the year I turned 50, I started over again. My wife, I wasn't making enough money to pay our bills, really. And my wife said, why don't you just get a job? And I said, get a job? I never had a job with benefits and vacation pay and benefits and a salary, ever. And so Gary said, I'd like to ask you if you'd like to come work for me. He said, I want you to meet this guy and see if you can work with him. Well, there's nothing I wouldn't do for Jamie, and there's nothing he wouldn't do for me. And for the last 15 years, we just been going around doing nothing for each other. But he was the sales manager, and I was the sales rep. I worked there for 10 years, a decade. And so that was a really good time in my life. And I made some great friends at Bristol. And then Gary passed on, and Jamie became the general manager, and we continued our tradition of doing some concerts together. And in the last 10 years, we've brought some famous people to the Carson Center. This was some of my heroes. And we've had about 30 concerts, and over 2/3 of them have sold out. You're supposed to applaud there. And it's not all that easy selling out the Carson Center down there. I'm telling you, that's a pretty good little trick. Gary told me once, he said, I mentor a young man, and I mentored him from age 6 to 18. He said, there's nothing that you could do that would be better than investing your time and energy and effort into the life of a child. So this is Paul Jolly. He was one of my early mentored young fellas, and he was on American Idol and was in the top 9. Logan Oakley now works for Miranda Lambert. A bunch of these young people. Out of my staff, 6 of them are teenagers. I work every week, and they do an amazing job, these teenagers do. And I coach 23 young people, and I take them to Branson every year and teach them the ropes out there from the shows, and we go backstage and meet famous people, and they love that. That's my crew now. And 5 years ago, we started another new chapter, Cowboy Church. And not only do we give people spiritual advice and we read the Bible and we sing gospel songs, but our church is a little bit different because we give a little bit of cowboy advice as well. Like, always drink upstream from the herd and never squat with your spurs on. Stuff like that. But it's really great. We're running about 80 to 100 people in Cowboy Church. It's a wonderful ministry. We started it as a ministry, and the pastor is a full-time missionary. That's our praise team. Again, I'm working with 2 adults there and 3 teenagers. And so I've invested my life in some of these young people, like Clint Fisher and like these kids, like those 3 right there. They're like my own grandchildren. I just love them. And then a new chapter happened, and I got 1 minute here to tell you this real quick story. At 16, 100 years from now, it might not make any difference how much money you made, how big a house you lived in, or what kind of clothes you wear, but it might make a great difference if you have made the difference in the life of a child. The next 100 years might be different because you mentored a young child. I suggest that each of you Take a child and let them work right along beside you. Teach them how you failed in business. Teach them how you succeeded. Teach them all about your business and mentor that person to do what you do. Thank you. Thank you.
Clay, thank you very much for presenting here today. I know I took notes, and I'm definitely going to try tonight. You want to go to sleep or what? I'm going to try that.
Try to see if that works.
Rotary contributes to the Rotary Foundation, and we fight to wipe out polio from around the world. And we have contributed to the foundation in your name.
Well, thank you so much.
And thank you very much for being here with us
God bless
today.
you, brother, and thank you for asking me. Thank you.
Okay.